Welcome to Conversations with Michael Woodland of M-W Tactical.com. This is where we have conversations with those in the gun industry about matters with society, life, and of course, firearms. All right, good people, we're back at it again with another conversation. Today's conversation is someone who actually got me started into public speaking in a sense, but podcasting in the better way of saying things. This person, in my personal opinion, is a living legend within the gun industry. If you haven't read the book or heard the podcast, do a look up for The Black Man with the Gun. His name is Kenn Blanchard, and without further ado, I want to welcome Kenn Blanchard to Conversations. How's it going for you, Kenn?
Going good, man. Thank you for letting me be on your show.
Hey, that's what it is. You know, like I said, if anything, you are one of the top two people I enjoy talking to all the time.
Oh, thanks, man.
You know, so yeah, it was like after every conversation, it's like you pass off so much knowledge, and I don't even think you really realize that you're doing it when it happens. So, to give everyone a little backdrop of what took place and how I met you, I met Kenn a couple years ago, whereas he ended up calling me over the telephone and asking if I was interested in doing an interview. I said yes, and I'm thinking it was just a plug to say, okay, I want to interview you on this date, this time. But when the conversation actually started, it was like, okay, hold on, I'm gonna hit record. I was like, wait. And then by the time it was like, hey, this is we already started. A few months later, Kenn had hit me up and asked me if I was interested in doing a segment on his podcast, The Black Man with the Gun. And years after that, we've been together ever since. You know, so but for the most part, can you go ahead and give the listening audience a little bit of a backdrop of who Kenn Blanchard is?
All right. But back in 1986, when I came out of a law enforcement training center instructor class, I got the bug to teach my community about firearms instruction, about safety, about, gun ownership, about all the good stuff that we do now, take it for granted. And I enlisted the help of like two of my other buddies. And I said, look, we can start this company. We can like moonlight and teach cops and security guards and regular folks about security and about training and about tactics and all the stuff in firearms world that we had learned. And they were like, okay, so you get it started and we'll join you. Well, it never happened. I went by myself, started my own little business, got a little shingle, had a little office outside of a range here in Maryland. And I was training people. I was finding out all the stuff about firearms history and life that nobody tells you about. Well, not back then, they didn't. Again, all this is prior to Google and social media. So I'm making flyers. I'm going on the radio. I'm talking about gun rights and the African-American community, and I was getting beat up by nobody's business. I mean, everybody was on me like hard. So I learned the hard way about the history of African-American people and gun rights. It educated me. It made me want to learn more. So I became a historian by default. I started asking all my older uncles that were still with us, have you ever heard about the Deacons of Defense and Justice? Who were the Black Panther Party for self-defense? Who were all these people that I had just barely glimpsed about, that folks would look at you and just think that you were one of those? Well, some of these folks are still living. So they imparted knowledge to me. And the next thing I know, I was forming my own gun club, actually, called the 10th Cavalry Gun Club here in Maryland, which branched out to Jersey and Baltimore. I think they even had a quick one in Chicago for a hot second. And the NRA was like, hey, this guy's doing some stuff. Let's bring him on. And then the next thing I know, I was being chauffeured around to speak statewide for this new concealed carry movement that had just started. So we went to about 6 different states. I found out that I had the gift of gab, which is kind of odd because I didn't talk most of the time unless you put a microphone in front of me. And we did this thing We talked to all the hard case people, the senators and the congressmen that didn't want to have concealed carry in their neighborhoods with people of color. They had some real racist stuff behind the past, and they kind of held on to it. Well, we helped push that through. As time went on, I started meeting a whole bunch of folks in the industry, started going to SHOT Show for the first time. As a blogger, was dogged for it. I mean, folks were like, these damn bloggers, they come here with all this stuff on the internet. The internet was like brand new. And when my website came out in 1999, it was amazing because people were still on AOL 1.0 at the time. So dial-up took about, I don't know, 60 seconds for my page to load. But when it came up, you saw the cover of my book and James Brown was singing, and folks went crazy because this was the internet, man. And this dude was doing it. They didn't know that I had a doctor, PhD of, she was, I forgot what they called it back then, but HTML was not for everybody. It was like only the top echelons of people knew about this stuff back then. So I had this webmaster, which you had to like go to school for back then. Now it's like your daughter can do it. But back in the day, you had to be a brain, you had to be an egghead. And I had all the stuff happening before the curve. And then I got into podcasting after I stopped traveling, after I went into ministry, and then I got beat up some more for being pro-gun in the ministry. But the everything that I had launched kept going, and all the people that I had met kept in contact with me. So I wanted to continue to talk to them, to be with them, to inspire them, and that made the podcast. The podcast was me being me being the person who wanted to be in a radio his whole life. And 2007 is when that came out, and it was a work in progress. I tried everything on that show. I sang. I had comedians on there that it was their first time on the air somewhere too. We bombed together. There were I did narrations. I just pushed the envelope, and 13 years later, people know me now mostly for the podcast. But I've been there, done just about everything you can think of, and glad about it. I'm glad I'm still standing.
That's what it is. Now, pretty much in the sense of speaking, everything that we're doing far as, and let's just call it gun activists, you pretty much started doing everything back in the 80s that I'm doing today. So that old saying of, if you don't know your history, the same thing is going to repeat itself again. How often have you seen everything that's happening today happen back when you first started?
That's the part that really messes my head up. I didn't know how much history repeats itself. Times change, but people remain the same. We are still struggling with the same naysayers, the same egos, the same folks trying to get over on you that were back in the 80s and the 90s. So what you have now is access to more people, but the people are still the same. So you're still going to get those who take advantage, still going to get those who don't answer, don't respond. All the negatives that kept me from doing better then, all the new activists and the new folks today have the same issues. Nobody changes. And then when you're doing it, there's no book on it, no school on it, nobody to really tell you this is going to happen, except for some old dude named Kenn that reminds you, like, yeah, that can happen, but hang in there because tomorrow's a new day and it's going to be all right.
I honestly believe that, but at the same time, I also believe that in order for real change to happen, we have to get fresh blood into the political arena. And I'm a big advocate of career politicians only doing a term limit. And easier sense of thinking, if the president can only do, a 4-year term, what about the Congress and senators, the ones who are actually writing the laws? No term limits, because there are still a lot of people who are holding seats in the political arena that was active in the civil rights movement. So and that's just what I honestly believe. In order for real change to happen, fresh blood needs to come in.
But see, what happened also is that uh, we've made it so that we trust our politicians so least, or we don't like them, that nobody wants to replace them. Nobody wants to. It's not an honorable job anymore. It used to be, to serve fellow man was a good thing. To be um, to aspire to be a politician used to be a good thing. Now that's almost a negative word, and you don't want to be in that spot. So these guys and ladies get a chance to stay there for life because nobody wants to knock them out of their spot. Nobody wants the headache. Um, and it's almost like something's wrong with you if you aspire to that position. And I got a guy here in Maryland that was in Congress when I was in grade school, and he's still there.
Hmm. Just taking up spots, space.
You see his name when it's election time,
Mhm.
and you see a big sign, and just breaks out these new signs. They don't have to have his face on it or nothing. It's just his name for Congress, and that joke has been there since I was in school. Steny Hoyer.
Mhm. Man, that's crazy. That's really crazy.
Yeah,
Um, Now I've actually said this a time, a couple years ago, maybe like 10, 15 years ago. I would literally run for office, but I really don't know what to do. So if I can put together a team, collect the money, I would actually run for office,
yeah,
but at the same time, I wouldn't try to be in office for 30, 40 years because my agenda would probably be, hey, let's go ahead and try to push term limits, or my interests, which are firearms. So, of course, I will back the firearms community, you know.
yeah. What I saw, I ran in 2014 at the same time that our current governor was elected, and it was like the first time a Republican governor ever hit Maryland. Blah blah blah. Uh, the whole, I learned a lot during that couple of years when I was running. That you have to appease the party that you're running in. That there are people that you have to go meet, and it's a game almost by itself just to get on the ballot. Well, to get on the ballot is easy. To get elected is a whole different story. And what was funny was that I went from a Democrat to Republican for this race, and there's never been a Republican elected in my area. So I instantly won my primary, and that was a good tactical move. Um, so I'm on the ballot, and there's like 15 people on the Democratic side fighting for the slot that I was trying to get. And when we had our debate, they all knew each other. They had been in the system at various levels forever, and they were battling for this spot. So when the debate hit, and we were all in this auditorium, they just took shots at each other. And then when it got to me, they didn't know who I was, so they couldn't really say anything. And the person who was doing we called the moderator, asked a couple of questions, and they couldn't touch it because I had no past. I had nothing that they could actually dog me for. Um, and then what was funny was a really big newspaper here called me up. And they said, "What's your stance on this?" And I said, "Well, one of the things I want to do is open the books and show people what we're spending money on in our county." And she says, "Oh, that's never going to happen. You're never going to win off being honest." And I thought, wow. She goes, "But God bless your heart." And when the election came, I was blown away. It was like a 97% win for the other guy, and those 3% that voted for me. Um, I cheer them now. I was like, 'cause every once in a while I go somewhere and somebody say, "Hey man, I recognize that name." I was like, "You're probably one of the 3,000 people in this county that voted for me. I appreciate you. You must be part of the chicken owners of Maryland or something, the poultry farmers or something." I had like a really small group, man, that people supported me, but it was cool.
Yeah. So like I said, that's one of those arenas whereas you have to have somebody who understands that feel. Just like if you go to the range to learn how to shoot, you have to have that professional there that knows the range commands, the range etiquettes, and then the way around the firearm. So you're gonna have that team that backs
Yeah,
you up
can't do
to
it by
get your
yourself.
message up. So it's something, like I said, I've been toying around with, thinking about. But and like I said, if somebody was to contact me and say, "Hey, if you're serious," and we come up with a plan, more likely I would do it.
That's cool, man. I hope it happens.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, what they say, dream big. One day it might come true.
I live in that zone right there.
So, a while back, the Black Man with the Gun podcast has been on for an eternity, and then you decided to retire. Now, of course, by me being the co-host of the Black Man with the Gun podcast, we've talked a number of times behind the scenes, and I feel like I talked you out of retirement at least 2 times. The third time,
Yeah,
I
you did.
felt like I couldn't get you out of it. Your mind was already made up. You was already, hey, I'm putting it on the shelf, passing the baton on to whoever. Now, of course, when this did take place, you made the announcement. My phone would not stop ringing after you made that announcement, because there were so many people calling me saying, "Hey, is this a gimmick? Is he for real? Can you talk him out of it?" And I was telling everybody pretty much the same thing. Hey, I've tried. His mind is made up, and you can't push a man to do something he's not willing to do. So now we just got to fill the void in. So we all got to come together to fill the void. But what was your reasoning for retirement? And then what was your reasoning for coming back with the Black Man with the Gun podcast?
Well, again, for 12 years of trying everything, for saying stuff, I had I guess some imposter syndrome that I didn't have a range. I wasn't competing. I didn't attend every shot show. I didn't chase every influencer. I wasn't running behind all the product people. So the competition to have fresh stuff for my audience, I thought I didn't have. And even though I was giving them my wisdom and experience and stories and history, I didn't think that was enough, or I thought nobody cared. There's too much flashy stuff out here, and our audience likes flashy, and I'm no longer shiny, and I wanted to go before I did something dumb and mess up. So after saying that to myself over and over again, that I was done, that there was nothing I could contribute, I convinced myself that I was through. And as soon as I finished in December, I think I cranked out probably 2 more podcasts of totally different subjects because I love this whole genre, this medium. And but the emails hit me too, and the calls. As the world changed, as COVID hit, as marches started, as we became the second part of 1968 all over again. A lot of the stuff that I was talking about before was coming true or was relevant. And people were like, "Hey, man, I remember when you said this the first time. I sure would like to hear your take on this." And I heard that enough times to think, oh, well, maybe some of the stuff that I was saying before was okay. Maybe the fact that I didn't have a range, that I wasn't competing, that all that stuff that I thought was a negative wasn't. So let me try and see if anybody pays attention to my return. So I did the big announcement. I'm coming back in July, and I waited. I mean, actually, all the stuff that I've learned from podcasting, I made sure that I informed my audience that I was coming back. I gave them time to get their schedules back together. I had my launch date all straight in my head, and after I got that motivated, I was chomping at the bit to get back. I had to fight myself for not coming in earlier than I had said I was going to. Um, and once I did launch in July, we cranked out I think 4 episodes last month. Turned out pretty good too, actually, better than I thought.
Right. Now, of course, when you actually said the retirement of the Black Man with the Gun podcast, For me, I had to fill the void because when I first started doing the Black Man with the Gun podcast, I was in the military. So it was always a certain day when I would get off of work. I will sit down and plan out what I'm going to talk about. 2 or 3 days, I'll record it. One day, I'll edit it. I'll put it together, and then I send it to you. Right. So it was like about 4 days altogether for me to work on a little segment that was probably about 5 to 10 minutes. But I look forward to doing that every, week, you know,
Wow.
for contribution to the Black Man with the Gun podcast. Then the role kind of increased a little bit because when I first started, it was just the tips segment. And then we branched out and you was like, hey, just run free with it, do whatever you want to contribute. If I don't like it, I won't use it. But so far, everything you're doing is good. So I reached out and started deciding to hold conversations with people. And it was an old guy there at Fort Benning who I was talking to that listened to the podcast, and he didn't know it was me doing the tip segment. And he actually said, hey, I think that guy would actually be pretty good at doing interviews because the pro shop on post, he was listening to the podcast like every so often when I would walk in. And then he was like, yeah, that the guy who's doing the tip segment, I think he'll be pretty good doing interviews. So then I started playing with it. And then every now and then I'll reach out and hit an interview here or there. Then it got to the point where I was like, hey, an interview is nothing more than a regular conversation. And I like to talk to people, you know? So ran with that. And then I started giving you my ideas of what needs to make change for a positive and how we can possibly bring in, more people into the conversation. And next thing you know, you said you was retiring, and I'm sitting there like, yo, I got all these ideas bouncing in my head. What do I do? Where do I go? And literally, I was on the range one day, and 4 people came up to me, and they was asking about the Black Men with the Gun podcast. And somebody actually asked if I was going to take it over. And I was like, man, that's too much power right there. You don't understand what's in that seat, you know? So I was like, right now, I'm working on something, but I don't want to say what it is, which turned out to be the M-W Tactical podcast that just talks about the realm of competition shooting. And then the conversations, the interviews were nothing more than people in the industry and how they contribute or other shooters and what they do to prepare and just a natural conversation. So I got like a lot of positive feedback on that podcast as well.
Oh
All
yeah,
thanks
you're
to
definitely doing it.
all thanks to Kenn Blanchard and the Black Man with the Gun podcast.
And I did try to give it to you too.
Yeah. I was like, oh no. That was a short thinking process because of the fact that's like somebody handing you the keys to like a 1971 Mustang souped up. Like, hey, here, just drive it every day. Nah, you don't drive that every day, man. You only bring it out on certain occasions.
That was my Gran Torino moment right there, but I didn't die.
That's what it is. So I want to thank you for bringing back the Black Man with the Gun podcast. And at the same time, you did change up the flavor of the show a little bit because your intros, the commercials, and everything are brand new. So, what's your take with moving forward with the Black Man with the Gun podcast?
I don't even know. I'm really just rolling with it. Like after being in this space of podcasting, like when I go to conferences for podcasters, and I'm in the space with people like John Lee Dumas and Gary Vee and the other folks that you might have heard of that are making billions with their podcasts. I learned from them guys being close to them, not making no money, but I've learned enough to make sure that my show stands pretty tall next to the thousands of people who try podcasting every day. So I'm going to try to make sure that this thing stays fresh, and give you something that you haven't seen. And even some of the stuff that I've done in the past that everybody might not have listened to in the 638 episodes, I can bring them back and with a little different flavor to it, and you might appreciate it more, updated one. There's a lot of history that still we have forgotten that I still remember. Um, I'm actually history now. It's kind of weird. When I was looking at the whole civil rights moment and stuff about the from King to the marches to the assassinations, um, I was a little kid back then, but my parents and my elders were all influenced by it, and how that happened affected everything. And I was a dumb little kid in that time, but I remember stuff. So I'm interjecting, like I'll tell a story about what happened in North Carolina or South Carolina. There's a possibility that I'll interject something that I know for a fact that happened in my lifetime that you might know. So I kind of weave history that's written with the history that's known, and you'll hear that in the new show.
Hmm. So now, with the racial tension that's going on across the nation right now, whereas they're pretty much trying to slow down and shut down the postal service, they're using COVID as a deterrent to doing other things. What do you see as far as what can happen next in 2020 that can go wrong?
Just exposure. There's some damage that's already been done to our country, and folks are just finding out about how it's been done politically, and they're going to have less. It's going to be harder to find politicians that want to get the job for the right reasons. Once you learn how jacked up our system has been, and people are going to get angrier before they get happier, because once you've been once you realize how much you've been lied to, you don't trust a lot of stuff, and trust is a big factor right now. So it's going to get uglier and darker before it gets better.
And I do believe that also, because I've also stated that in order for positive change to come that we all looking for, we're going to have to suffer a lot more before that change comes. And the one thing about today's struggle versus the struggle from the 60s is today there are not that many people willing to sacrifice. And in order for that change to come, we have to sacrifice to fight to keep it going forward.
The good news is that there are these activists. This gun rights movement has the most solid people in it that I've met. And even though we're tied to it by the gun, we're the real citizens of the country. I mean, we're the ones that vote. We're the ones that care about stuff. We kind of make things heavy behind the gun, but we care a lot about the rest of our life, our company, our countries, our communities, everything. So we are the ones that are going to have to kind of like branch out from behind just the Second Amendment and be more citizens.
Right. But in order for the activism to take place, we're going to have everybody get active
Yeah.
to push forward. So it's not depending on one person, it's everybody, you know. But it can only be so many people in front of the camera, but all the work is behind the camera.
Yeah.
So and that's where the big pay comes from, behind the camera.
And that's one of the things I'm embracing. Every group that's always made it has had a medicine man, a shaman, a priest, a friar tuck, a battlefield chaplain. That's my job.
Mhm.
I'm not even going to try to be out front all the time, but I'm going to make sure that I heal mentally and spiritually all those that get wounded in the battlefield, so I can patch them up, send them back out there. Sometimes you need somebody to be encouraging and let you know that, hey, what you did is helping, even though you just took a licking. I want you to like get back up and do it again.
That's it right there. So you plan on going to SHOT Show next year?
This 2021, I might. I'm I'm really for the people. I mean, it used to be like, I can't wait to see the new stuff. I can't wait to shoot the new stuff. Now it's like, I want to see so and so because I know that a lot of folks spend their leave and their vacation time to make it out there. So it's like a one shot deal. I'll see people that I'll never see the rest of the year at shot. So if I can make it to that one meeting, I'll catch probably 75% of all the hard chargers out here.
I can actually say, consider this: going to SHOT Show, NRA, USCCA, setting up a booth, and then do the Black Man with the Gun podcast live at those events.
Man, that'll be some big money right there. But the cool thing would be, folks will come to me. I get to see everybody. That's a good plan. I got to pick one of them first, so I have to do one, and then branch.
Yeah. Well, NRA show was supposed to be in Kentucky this year, but they canceled it, of course, for COVID.
Yeah.
It was either Kentucky or Tennessee. And then next year is going back to Texas. And I want to say it's either Dallas or Houston. I can remember.
Two good, either one is good spots, man.
Yes, it is.
So maybe next year, let me write that down. Get a booth. It'd be like in the basement. That joke would be like, in the cheap seats, you have to like really look for it, and the signal probably won't even reach down there. But I'll record it all and have it all video. But I think that might be a thing. I might have to do a GoFundMe, man, for my booth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
good idea, dude.
Work. Yeah, like I said, I got plenty of good ideas. It's just a matter of I got to get all this stuff out of my head because all these ideas are bouncing around. I can't do it all by myself. I got to share it with other people.
Yeah. But that'd be cool. I can see it now. Everybody be squatting at my booth selling their crap. I have to chase them out all the time. You know how some of us are. Some of us bootleg people.
That's it right there. All right. So how can the good people actually contact you, listen to your content, see what's coming next, your social media platforms, everything dealing with Kenn Blanchard and the Black Man with the Gun podcast and your ministry, Speak Life, and whatever else you're a part of?
If you go to blackmanwiththegun.com, you'll find out everything that I'm doing. It's also an open platform for writers, for contributors. If you want to shine a little light on your blog, since mine has been around since 1999, it's pretty strong on the Google juice. I was hoping that one day it could be competitive to Huffington Post for the anti-people. But so all the pro folks that want to be on it, come to blackmanwiththegun.com. You'll see about my Speak Life Church ministry. There's a podcast there. I have one for Indian motorcycles because I can't get enough of podcasting. And I also I'm bringing back another show. It's going to just be called Reverend Kenn Blanchard Show, which is going to be, I have no idea yet, but it's going to be everything that's not on the Black Man with the Gun show. And I actually help my son with his martial arts show. And he does pop culture and stuff that's topical in his brain called Warrior Cast. And you might find a link to somewhere. But if you go to blackmanwiththegun.com, you'll find everything about me. And if you just search for Kenn Blanchard, and that's Kenn with 2 N's, I pop right up in the search engines.
That's it right there. So if you got the time, you like listening to the podcast, please look up Black Man with the Gun podcast. If you want to play catch up, you got like 640 episodes to listen to. That
It'll be a minute.
Yeah, like wherever you're driving to, there's more than enough episodes to catch up on. Without further ado, please go to your social media outlets, look up Black Men with the Gun on Facebook, on Instagram, but then also turn around and give us a follow on Instagram at Munitions Weapons Tactical, on Facebook, M-W Tactical, and YouTube, M-W Tactical. Right. So today, I want to go ahead and thank Reverend Kenn Blanchard of the Black Man with the Gun podcast coming on to conversations with M-W Tactical and just holding the conversation with us. So
right on, man. Thank you for letting me be here.
Hey, no problem. Anytime. You're welcome to come anytime. So until next time, keep shooting, keep practicing, and have fun.